Welcome in to another edition of Gold and Black Radio. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. I have lost my glasses, so you're going to have to, if you're watching the video component of this, I can't find them. I think they might be out of my car in my driveway, but it's dark outside. We're taping this right now late on Monday night, and I'm not going out there to get them. So you guys are going to have to deal with a glasses-less me, even though I can't really see anything. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see Brian Neubert later, but that's okay. Brian would probably prefer it that way. It was truly a throw the records out kind of rivalry game on Friday night as Purdue survived a great effort from Indiana to maintain its Mackey dominance in the series with an 81-76 win. A tricky week here ahead for the Boilers. They head to Iowa City. By the time you're listening to this, it'll be tonight to take on a banged up but dangerous Hawkeyes team just because of their ability to shoot the ball from deep. And then they get a USC team at home coming off a massive win over Michigan State this Friday who also presents some challenges. We're going to talk about all of it with Brian Neubert next in this edition of GBR. But first, a thank you to our tremendous Gold and Black Radio sponsors, including Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Boiler Up, East End Grill and Ripple & Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. The Whitaker Inn, this Midwestern oasis, is perfect for a relaxing staycation or a weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn. The Sand Valley Resort, the Friends of James Beard Chef Invitational at Sand Valley offers a weekend of culinary delights as 8 Midwest chefs showcase their skills. Enjoy exceptional food, friendly competition, and fundraising in a unique and unforgettable setting. As winter melts away, join us in 2025 for an unforgettable culinary journey with opportunities to taste and learn. All you have to do is visit sandvalleypursuits.com/events/chef invitational to sign up. And finally, the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research, which has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Purdue brings together world-class Boilermaker scientists from across the university, conducting cutting-edge research that uncovers new ways to prevent, diagnose, and treat cancer. With your support, cancer research saves lives. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Joining us now, as he does pretty much every Tuesday during the season on Gold and Black Radio, is goldenblack.com columnist and basketball coverer,
yes,
Brian Neubert. And Brian, I think there are really two ways to look at Friday night's game. And by the way, to preface, I fully understand that in today's day and age, when you're talking about a game from 5 days ago, it feels like it was 5 months ago. Mm-hmm. But that's the last time Purdue played, and that's the last time that we talked on this show prior to that game happening between the Boilers and Hoosiers. You know, the good way to look at it would be, look, it's a rivalry game. You want to beat IU. Who cares about style points? And Purdue also, I think in their defense, they played what I would call like a C+ level game. And I think Indiana played more like an A-, maybe even an A game, and Purdue still won. The bad of that, and the flip side would be the three-point shooting continues to be, non-existent at times for them. The performance on the glass was not good. And while I understand the foul trouble really kind of caused problems for them, the fact remains that likely an NIT-bound Indiana team really outplayed Purdue for long stretches in that game and had every opportunity to win before they kind of, peed down their leg as they normally do in late game situations. Win is a win and all that, but I didn't leave that performance feeling great. Am I wrong to feel that way?
No, you're not. If you didn't leave your glasses in the car and you saw the game, you saw Indiana probably play its best game of the year. Mm-hmm. And Purdue play at a, something less than its best, and Purdue still wins. And, I think that's kind of the nature of where Purdue is right now versus where Indiana is right now. I am more inclined to give Indiana a lot of credit for that versus docking Purdue for that, because Indiana could have, phoned it in, lost by 20 and surprised no one. But for them to play as well as they did, I thought they had a good game plan. I thought they did a lot of the things you have to do to be successful against this defense Purdue is playing so effectively right now. And I thought they played hard. I thought Trey Galloway made tough shots. I thought Ballo rebounded. I thought Luke Goody was goody. So a little play on words for you there. And I just thought Indiana really brought it, and it wasn't enough. And I think Purdue, probably got put on notice to a certain extent for that game in Bloomington here in a little bit. Yeah. But no, I think Mackey Arena is always a huge advantage for Purdue. I think they kind of hung in there, and I think there's positive to be taken from almost losing. I think the fact that you fought off somebody else's best effort. Remember, Penn State eons ago now, I thought was the last vestige of sort of Purdue being everyone's Super Bowl and having to expect the absolute best version of every opponent they're going to get. And that wasn't true. I mean, it doesn't have to be somebody else's home floor. Indiana obviously rose to the occasion against Purdue. Whether that's the rivalry, I have no idea. All these kids are from the Southeast. They're all transfers. I doubt they grew up giving a damn about the Purdue-Indiana rivalry. But I think that it was probably a little bit of desperation on their part because of how things were going for them. And I don't know if they're invested enough in their coach to want to play to save him, but something came out of that Indiana team that absolutely pushed Purdue to its breaking point, and Purdue didn't really break, and Purdue rallied back when it looked like, it was in real jeopardy there. And I think the fact Purdue's been in these situations time and time again together, I think really puts a face on the difference between what Purdue is and what places like Indiana now are, where they're assembling these teams in off seasons. If Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer and Traycoff Moran and Caleb First hadn't played 70 games together, prior to this one, who knows how that game goes. If Indiana hadn't been assembled last May, let's say, maybe they're better in late game situations, and maybe they've won their last two games. I mean, that's it sort of reflects what Purdue is, what's making Purdue successful right now, the continuity, the experience together, stuff like that. And it's a stark contrast from what a lot of these other places are. But no, Purdue had the poise in the end, had the players in the end, and, really fought off a great effort from a desperate opponent.
Yeah, and one thing that I think they did, and they did well, was, and this is what they've been doing to everybody, is they turned Indiana over. Another just astonishing, what was it, 30 points off of turnovers. What did you think? Yeah, 26. What did you think of the ball pressure? And it sounds weird saying this because Indiana shot, 56% in the game, and, to overly praise the defense. But I really did feel like individually, everyone who touched the floor contributed in some way on that end.
Yeah, what was funny about the IU game is Indiana was somehow, when your leading scorer is a 60% layup and dunk guy, they were last in the Big Ten in 2-point field goal percentage in Big Ten play. How that's even possible, I have no idea. But they were. And they were damn near perfect. I shouldn't say perfect, but they were 70-something% against Purdue. Trey Galloway making all those runners.
Yeah,
that's the shot in Purdue's defense you have to live with, because you don't want Ballo dunking on the roll. You don't want Ballo free to just put back a miss when a miss goes up. A lot of the same principles as what Zach Edey did to opponents the last couple of years for Purdue. But Indiana made a lot of the shots that Purdue was willing to live with. I mean, they weren't all, the ideal shots, but they made IU make the plays that you have to make against that defense. Normally contested twos, normally drives into traffic, normally tough runners. And if you're going to win or lose on Trey Galloway making all those runners, you're going to win a lot. And but that's a credit to Indiana. For the turnovers, Purdue's just doing a remarkable job playing together, putting pressure on the basketball, like you mentioned, and just really being disruptive in its help. Braden Smith just constantly digging the ball out on bigger people. Purdue constantly being in the right positions and allowing our opponents to make mistakes, inviting them to make mistakes. And I think Jakari Harris and CJ Cox have been a real catalyst for what Purdue's doing defensively. They're putting very good pressure on the ball without giving up straight line drives like they were earlier in the season in November and December. They're not perfect, but they're doing a much better job than they were before. And that's kind of allowing Purdue's help to take shape, and everything else to kind of fall into place behind that. But Purdue's just doing a shockingly good job defensively, just shocking. Purdue is not built for turnovers. Very few college basketball teams play this way anymore, or play that way anymore, because of the rules. I hope you didn't just see me spit my cough drop out on my shirt. Oh, you don't have your glasses on, so let's just.
Yeah, I didn't. I have no idea. There's this flannel blob that's talking right now. Yes.
Blob?
Sorry,
man.
I meant like a blur. Right? That wasn't a comment on
I got you. I
the
got
body
you.
weight.
Anyway, so everybody is playing these analytics-based defenses where you just want to keep the ball out of the lane, and that's deterring them from pressuring. Remember, Illinois, when Underwood first got that job, they were all-out denial, and now they're the exact opposite because that's where college basketball is going, and that's kind of what you have to play. Purdue's very much been in that, but they're not really forcing turnovers by really playing like they did in the mid-2000s. They're forcing turnovers by being really good in what they do. And it's just absolutely been a game changer for Purdue. And it's really given you this kind of consistent baseline of productivity where you're getting X number of points off turnovers, you're getting fast break points every game, and you're stealing points, and you're not having to be perfect in your execution and half-court offense, things like that. You can't say enough about that. Now, the risk is you run into that game where somebody's really good offensively and just doesn't make mistakes, then all of a sudden that stuff dries up on you. But for the time being, it's been an absolute godsend for Purdue in this Big Ten basketball season.
Yeah, and they've
The hell did
needed to
that thing
steal.
go?
Yeah.
Oh, I got it right here.
There you go. All right, I'm glad that we recovered.
All right, let's move on.
They've needed to steal points because you go out to Eugene and you hit 2 threes. Against Indiana, you shoot 2 of 13, and that's not normally the blueprint to winning. And I understand that they had a great afternoon against Nebraska, but you look overall at the Big Ten season, you're kind of like, is this, almost to the point where it's a problem with the 3-point. And I don't mean to single out Heide and Colvin, and they've contributed in other ways, notably Heide as the hustle guy and kind of the Swiss Army knife. But I went back and looked, Brian, just because I was like, I can't remember the last time Cam Heide hit an open 3. He's 2 of 17 from 3 since Christmas. If you take out the Nebraska game, Miles Colvin's 3 of 24 over that same stretch. And I mean, these are two guys, Colvin shot 40% last year, for God's sake. And we know that they can make those shots. And it just feels like over the last month or so that part of Purdue's offense it's gone away a lot more than it's been there. And, how big of a concern is that for you?
It's a concern until it's not a concern. I think Purdue's due. So we'll kind of see what happens from here, but they're a better shooting team than their numbers. They're shooting 33% in Big Ten play from 3-point range. That includes the 2 December games, by the way. But I think they're doing that on like 40% level shot quality. I think they're getting great looks. They're just not making them, which is really the most important part. And I mean, I don't know if there's really any rhyme or reason why. I think opponents are really, really trying to take away the 3. This is a kind of pick your poison deal like it always is with Purdue, where you either let, the pick and roll game beat you, or you take your chances by selling out on the 3s. I think people are trying to take away the 3s now. So you see Fletcher Loyer having to drive more. Then, I think people tend to expect a guy of his ability as a shooter to do, but it's the stuff like the wide open Colvin 3s and the wide open Heide 3s that just, if you were just shooting 30-something% as opposed to whatever it is, you'd be much better off for it. And opponents would be much less likely to take their chances on letting those guys shoot and helping off of them than they might be right now. It's just one of those things where Purdue's got skilled shooters who just not making shots. I don't really see any causation to it other than it's kind of basketball, I guess. It's a big round ball full of air, and it's shot by young people with sometimes fluid levels of confidence and whatnot, and something's forcing these shots to miss other than the defense. And if it turns around, it's going to turn around in a big way. And I think it probably will at some point. It's just you'd love to not have the ups and downs. I've always said about 3-point shooting, it's not necessarily how many you make in a game. It's when you make them. And the Indiana game, they had 3 opportunities, at least in the second half, where if one of those shots goes down, the roof comes off of that place.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Purdue is probably off on like a 10-0 run or something like that. The game's over. That's the way things work in Mackey Arena oftentimes, but Purdue just hasn't been able to make the shot at the time quite often this season.
Lawyer did hit a big one. What were they down 5? And that felt like
Yes.
like a big one, timing wise. But yeah, I know it doesn't work this way, but Colvin and Heidi, if you go 1 for 3 from 3 every game, that's 6 points. I mean, think about where this offense would be if you could rely on something like that. I wanted to talk about the officiating as well. I think if people read your post-game recaps, they know how you felt about the officiating. And I kind of shared
You think so?
Some of the same sentiments. I guess it's hard, right? These guys have a tough job, but I think there's a balance between letter of the law calls and just allowing stuff because it's a Big Ten rivalry game. And I just thought, this is going to sound like whining, but the TKR screens, letter of the law, was it a foul? Sure. It's one of those things you can whistle every time down. I thought the Renew one right after half, he picked up, I think, his third at that point. That was a really weak call, I thought.
Yes.
So I
in
think
the open floor,
both ways.
Absolutely.
And really I don't want it to be a fist fight. I don't want it to be, like a Knicks Heat 1997 playoff game, but I also don't want a bunch of ticky-tack garbage either.
Well, my whole thing with the moving screens on Trey Coffin-Renn was that, they're fouls. Under the letter of the law, they're fouls. But they're fouls that occur 20 times a game. And 18 of those times they don't get called. In this game, there were a bunch called. But it's one of those things, like I wrote today, that it's like people going 70 on 465, which is technically a 55-mile-an-hour zone that nobody adheres to. You could pull over every car on the road, and it's just, you're just not going to do that. But the thing with the Trey Coffin-Renn calls wasn't that they weren't moving screens; it's that fouls were 5-1 against Purdue. And you see it coming with officials in college basketball, specifically Big Ten officials, where once one team gets that far ahead in the foul column, guess who the next couple of calls are going against? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying players need to be aware of this because it shouldn't be the case. But when they're looking for something to call to even things out, those moving screens that go uncalled 6 times out of 8 are going to get called. And that's just the flaw in this environment where the fouls always have to be evened out by the officials. I've just never really understood it. You can see it coming. I predicted it real time on Twitter. If you go back and look at it, it's you can set your watch to it. And Trey Coffin-Renn's mistake was doing it at a time when refs were just looking for any reason to call fouls on Purdue. But if they wanted to call every one of those moving screens, they could have called 25 of them in that game. I think they probably called 6 or 7. I know one got called on Malik Reneau. The hook on Anthony Leal got called there on Braden Smith in the open floor. There were a bunch of these calls, but it was like a quarter of the number of calls that could have been made. The modern offense is very motion and timing based. It's very precise. A lot of these screens are people running into the screen and then running out of the screen. So the bump is kind of natural. I think it merits a conversation in the offseason about whether or not, because this isn't chess piece basketball anymore. This isn't, you move into a spot, you stay there, and then you very machine-like move out of that spot. It's all very fluid, very dynamic, and I think, the rule book has been passed by modern basketball. And I think in the offseason, they ought to have a conversation about whether or not they should either only call the absolute worst of the worst, or what, but or just call everything and then just turn it back into chess piece basketball. But it's one of those deals where you could have called 30 fouls. And nobody wants to see 30 fouls called. Trey Coffin-Renn's mistake was A, setting illegal screens, but B, doing it at a moment when refs were looking for something to call.
Yeah, I just think, whenever you have a game where both fan bases come away upset about how
Yes.
the game was officiated, then I think you did a poor job. And that review on it, I mean, without my glasses, I could see that ball hit the rim. I
Yes.
still don't know I don't know if they fell asleep or what happened. Like I don't know how you stopped the game for that review.
That was straight comedy, and it cost Purdue an opportunity to score. I just want to say something here real quick. I hate talking about the officiating. I hate writing about officiating. It just seems so lame. It seems like such low-hanging fruit. It seems so apologist. It seems so myopic, but it is part of the game. And when this stuff affects the game and the outcomes, it should be public. It should be publicly discussed. Like Paul Sells working 3 games in L.A., West Lafayette, and Piscataway in 3 days. In the span of 3 days, people should know about that, because that is the officiating complex in the Big Ten right now, and it's not right. And I'm not saying that had anything to do with the officiating being bad against Indiana, but I'm saying that it's just, there should be some transparency about this. There should be some discussion over all this stuff, and there should be more accountability. The review was absolute comedy. Like, if you just know basic geometry, like something doesn't come in like this and then go like this without hitting something, right? It's just, did nobody see that? Did nobody see the ball go straight down?
I don't know how that happens.
Yeah,
I mean, I think there's acceptable human error and then there's unacceptable. And what I have to talk about with the officiating sometimes is the unacceptable human error sometimes that you just can't happen. Last thing, Brian, Iowa tonight, they can't defend like always, right? That's just been a staple for Iowa now for years. They can't rebound either, but they just lost their best big man in Owen Freeman. So things are not going well. It looks like a season that has already turned and probably won't turn back. That said, how tricky is this game? Not only just the fact that it's on the road, but because Iowa can really light it up from 3. And Purdue, as we mentioned, has sort of backslid in that area lately, at least on a consistency basis.
Well, yeah, you don't want to get in a game of horse with these guys. Certainly the way Purdue's shooting right now and the way Iowa can shoot. But the thing that everything on paper, like Purdue's the more physical team, Purdue's the bigger team, which is not always the case this season. Mm-hmm. Purdue should get every rebound Purdue wants. Purdue should be able to put up a good number of points. You don't know where Iowa's head is right now after they've lost a bunch of games here lately, and they just lost arguably their best player. But the intrigue / fear in this game should lie in Iowa having nothing to lose and maybe just saying, hell with it. Let's just get crazy here. Let's put 5 guards on the floor and just shoot 53s tonight. We're not going to get rebounds anyway. We're not going to stop them anyway. So let's see if maybe we can shoot 43s, make 18 of them, and maybe run down 2 long misses and get layups off of those. And, all of a sudden then Purdue maybe makes some mistakes. Purdue doesn't shoot great. Suddenly anything can happen in the last 10 minutes. And that's kind of where the anxiety or the intrigue, should lie for Purdue, because there's nothing stopping Iowa from running 5 guys out there who can shoot, or 5 guards and wings out there at all times, and making Trey Kaufman-Renn guard a shooting guard or a small forward out 30 feet from the basket. That's just what would give me pause if I were Purdue here going into this game. But other than that, there's nothing in the numbers. There's nothing in the results that really says Iowa is getting ready to turn this around. Owen Freeman's important to them. But it's their 3-point shooting with or without Owen Freeman that I think is their best chance. Josh Dix, Peyton Sanford, those guys. Purdue's just got to do a great job on those guys and not let crazy things happen. It would help if Purdue made some threes too. They're going to get great looks. They just need to start making some of them.
Yeah, and with this 20-game schedule, I've talked about this sometimes. The timing is as important as who you're playing, and you'd rather play Penn State right now than in the first week of December, and I think you'd rather play Iowa right now. So here you are, right? And this is a good time to catch Iowa, at least on paper, with what we see. But yeah, I would be wary of. I'm wary of chalking any Big Ten road game up as an automatic win. And I'm just particularly wary just about Iowa, because they have the potential to do something really random and stupid. And you look back and you say, God, we hit 20, we hit 2 threes and they hit 20. What the hell happened? And so hopefully that's not the case coming up here tonight. But you can check out Brian's work, of course, not only for the recap of the Purdue and Iowa City, but then the Rose Bowl rematch with USC, which is now a league game coming up on Friday. You can catch that coverage, the wrap, the video analysis right here at goldenblack.com, and of course right here on Golden Black Radio. We'll do it again soon here, Brian. Thanks so much.
All right, Derek. Thanks, man.
That's our pal Brian Neubert, and that is our show, Golden Black Radio, this Tuesday edition. Thank you to our tremendous sponsors, the Purdue Federal Credit Union, the official credit card for Purdue fans, East End Grill and Ripple and Company, 2 distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette. The Whitaker Inn, for unparalleled comfort and cuisine, visit the Whitaker Inn. Sand Valley Resort, join us for the Friends of the James Beard Invitational at Sand Valley, an unforgettable culinary journey with opportunities to taste and learn. SandValleyPursuits.com/events/chef invitational for sign up. The Purdue Institute for Cancer Research, which has a history of innovation and one goal for the future, defeat cancer. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. And finally, don't forget to sign up to become a member for the best Purdue coverage right here at goldenblack.com. I am gone next week. We take a annual February family vacation, which is a great way to break up the winter. I'll be out where Purdue just was not that long ago in Phoenix. So looking to check out some cacti and see the sun, even though it was 65 degrees in Indianapolis earlier today. And I believe it'll be Alan Karpik and our buddy Alan and Brian next week for the show. So a Iowa USC recap, and then coming up here in a big stretch where it's the return game against Indiana, it's Wisconsin, it's I think Michigan is in there. I think the Michigan State game might be in there. Purdue's got a big stretch after this tricky week against Iowa and USC, and that I think really. If Purdue can take care of business this week, that'll be what decides whether or not the Boilermakers raise another Big Ten championship trophy for the regular season at the end of the day. So a critical time coming up here. Really, all these games are critical, right? You got to win all of them because that's just what the margin for error is so thin in this league and with the top of the league, and having already lost a home game to Ohio State and the Penn State game that we had mentioned as well. But that's where Purdue sits right now. We're looking forward to recapping all of it with you right here on Golden Black Radio. But until next time, enjoy Allen next week. I'm Derek Schultz, and we'll see you next time right here on Golden Black Radio.